you have to be able to have, like I said, boundaries. You know what I mean? You have to. It's a line that marks the limits of an area. Like you have to divide your attention sometimes to reach the goals that you set forth for yourself. Sometimes it's about more than manifesting. You got to do the work.
Are we done, yo? Mic off.
We back.
Yes,
welcome
sir.
welcome to another episode of the Keep It Uplifting podcast, where we discuss lifestyle, fitness, and motivation. I'm your host, Uplifting, and I have with me the man, the sometimes bad cameraman, the man behind the camera. Talk to the folks.
What's up, folks? How we doing, man? We back once again for you. Appreciate y'all coming back with us. You know what I'm saying?
Man.
Real talk.
This mic situation.
We gotta find somebody that's seen every single pod and listen to every single pod. Real, they deserve something, man. We've done this a lot of times. They deserve something.
Yeah, man. Episode 100, we got something coming for the guest, or not the guest, the people, the listeners. I guess they are guests to us, the listeners. Episode 100, we have something special coming for you guys. If you are listening to our voice right now, we appreciate it. Thank you for sticking with us for so long.
Mm-hmm.
It's been quite a journey,
Oh yeah.
and I hope you stick through it with us. You know, but sitting here scrolling through Twitter, found two what I would call funny, inspirational quotes that I wanted to run off. And the first quote here is, man, I can't even find it now. Look at me. Don't depend too much on anyone in this world, because even your shadow leaves you when you're in darkness.
Yo, why'd you put the Bane voice
You
on?
got to. You have to. It's a must.
You merely adopted the dog.
And then the next quote I have for you guys today is, I don't trust words anymore. I only trust actions. People can pretend to do a lot without being serious about it. And I don't want to make fun of people's pain or the place that these quotes potentially came from, but I quite often find myself reading books that have a lot of quotes in them. I have a Facebook group that is uplifting quotes that we drop quotes in all the time. I drop my own quotes on Twitter as well, but I've never circled back to a quote to complete a task or to really, really get me fired up. Like, a quote has never paid my bills. A quote has never gotten me a job position or made me study even harder. And maybe it works for some people, but I really have noticed that when you cut things out, like when you just solely focus on what you want to do, no matter what other people say, like sometimes you don't need praise, or you don't need constructive or destructive criticism.
Yeah.
You just need to dial it in and just work on whatever you want to work on without thinking about anything else but that.
Yeah. It's like first voice.
It's
You
the
know?
only voice.
Yeah, but I mean, so you know how people speak, make third person, second person,
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
like sometimes, like when you pod by yourself, it's first voice.
Right.
It's like I'm talking,
Yeah.
and everything I say is true, and everything I say is correct, and everything I say is the only.
Right.
It's first voice.
Right.
And so sometimes, a task needs that.
Yeah.
So I dig it.
I mean, I just see it so often that even when I talk to some of my peers, friends, in some of the groups I'm in, people at work, they're always able to reference somebody else's thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you get stuff done? Like, really, like when you really start thinking about what gets you to that next level, what's going to get you to where you're trying to get to, like that final stage of your dreams, you can't really listen to what people say.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the logic that is applied is not logical at that point.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times it doesn't even pertain to you,
Right.
right? And like you just said about these two quotes, they come from a place.
Right.
Like something hurt them or something didn't go the way they like for it to go, so this is what they came up with.
Right.
And before we go on, I want to reference something that somebody else said. I forget exactly who it was, but there's a clip out there that says when you're trying to be successful, you're trying to reach a goal. You don't wake up in the morning and look for motivation.
Right.
Like you don't. You may have heard this before. It's like
Facts.
you don't try to find motivation.
Yeah.
Like you just get up and you go do it because this is what I want to do.
Exactly.
This is what I want to achieve. You know what I mean? Nothing motivates me to do what I want to do.
Right.
You know, I think you mentioned it a bunch of times. Like what motivates you to get up and go to work? What motivates you to, take a shower? What
Right.
motivates you to? You know what I mean? You don't
Yeah.
necessarily need motivation to do something that is in your soul. You know?
Exactly. I think and I know for sure, at least for myself, it's a lack of boundaries for myself. Because I may cut people off, but I still let social media in. I still let, Netflix or Hulu in. And we don't really understand how that really gets our mind going in certain directions. It could be something positive, but those positive quotes had struggle in them.
Yeah.
And now you could have that same type of struggle embedded in your thinking for the day, for the week, off of these positive quotes like, there's a pride before the fall. It's like, you may not have no pride about what you're doing. You can't have too much ego.
But
there may be no ego involved in your efforts to make enough money to buy your mom a house.
Yeah.
Or to get your family out of poverty or be the first one to graduate from college. There may be no ego in that.
Right.
You just wanted to do that for other people and yourself.
Like I said, it may not pertain. And a lot of times when we open these things up, like the social media or Netflix, as you pointed out,
Right.
these things leak into our subconscious.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're talking about. Is sometimes it could drive us, you know what I mean, without us even really knowing that it drives us.
Yeah.
Right? Because a lot of times people go to sleep with like self-help listening in their ear, or even like myself, I go to sleep listening to podcasts. But I remember I used to go to sleep listening to speeches, right? And you know me, I'm kind of like I'm not gonna call myself an activist, but I listened to black activists while I used to go to sleep.
Right.
Marcus Garvey was one of my favorites, right? But like you said, sometimes what drives me isn't what necessarily drove him, and I found myself, you know what I mean, acting a certain way to certain different individuals,
Right.
because his kind of thinking leaked into my subconscious.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Everything black, everything black power, everything need to be like this, or everything has color. Period.
Right.
You feel me?
Yeah.
So when you listen to things like that, it could leak into your subconscious, and it could change the way you feel about certain things or the way you move towards certain goals.
Yeah. We have to figure out where to draw the line.
Yeah.
In trying to reach certain goals that have never been done by anyone that you know.
Oh, true.
You know, Kevin Hart said this, or we mention a lot of prominent black people all the time, but Tim Ferriss said this, or Mark Brunson said this. Like, these self-help people said these great things, but even in listening to their podcasts or them being on podcasts, they talk about just taking the steps necessary for them. Right? Like, Mark Brunson has a book, The Subtle Art of I believe it's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck or some shit like that. Like, but you really just have to.
Kind of like that.
Yeah, you have to be able to have, like I said, boundaries. You know what I mean? You have to. It's a line that marks the limits of an area. Like, you have to divide your attention sometimes to reach the goals that you set forth for yourself. And quite often, I feel like we really think that we can handle everything, and that's just not possible, right? Like you need some heads down time to reach your ultimate crazy ass goal. Because I'm talking about big dreams on here. This is for people who have big aspirations.
Right.
Like your friends are gonna want to go and hang out and be at birthday parties and do all of these things, and it's hard when they're like, you deserve it. Come on, man, you've been working hard. I see you've been working hard. They want to keep you with them. And if you don't have any boundaries for yourself, that's where you're going to be. Because I've had a lot of friends that I've seen go on to do great things, graduate from college, and I can tell you when they got serious, we wasn't hanging out and partying all the time.
Real talk.
Right? You know, and if anybody makes you feel bad for being obsessed or being driven, they're idiots.
Simple as that.
But like, you don't need a quote for that, you know?
Nah, you don't. I mean, I've experienced the same thing. I mean, when people are on their path, I love it, bro.
Yeah.
And when they get time to reach out or whatever they want to do,
Yeah.
Hey man, my bad. I ain't talked to you in a month or two. Like,
right.
I'm like, I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Like
you may needed some focus real quick. Ain't nothing, bro.
We understand that people get busy. People have lives, and I think that's the biggest thing that we're trying to point out here is that if you keep doing so much living of other people's lives, you'll never really get to focus on your own. That's a real. It's just there's no way around it.
Yeah.
You know, like I can't build a business trying to focus on how everybody built their business.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I can take tips. I read to just get my mind flowing. I don't read to say, "Oh, they said this and they did that, so I have to do
let
this."
Me do it like that. Right. Like sometimes you gotta be a creative with it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? I don't necessarily use things as motivation, but I use them as inspiration.
Right.
You know? And then I may take that idea and justify it to your own life and justify it to your own. And like it's funny, I'm glad that you pointed this out because a lot of inspirational or motivational quotes I can't relate to. Most of the stuff I can't relate to.
Yeah.
I remember when we started doing this, I told you I don't think I'm cut out to be motivated, right?
Right.
Because I don't bang with a lot of the motivational stuff, you know, because a lot of times people talk about it and they don't live it. They're really just talking. And a lot of these people get these quotes from other. You know what I mean, these are just recycled stuff.
Yeah, but you know? I think when it comes down to a Eric Thomas or, like I said, a Tim Ferriss or Stephen Bartlett or a Tony Robbins, like these are people who came from crazy situations to where they are. A
Most
Wall
definitely.
Street trapper, a Wallow 267. Like I could rattle off all these names, and what they're speaking from is experience, and what we're speaking from is experience.
Exactly.
Like I know what it's like to wear the same thing to school every day and to have only 2 pairs of shoes for 2 years and then take hand-me-downs from my brother.
Right.
Like, I know what struggle is. I know about eating oodles and noodles for breakfast, lunch. And dinner.
And snack.
Yeah.
I'm still hungry. Need some more oodles and noodles.
Yeah, man. Like, just screw it. And our parents thinking it's normal because, you know, we don't have money, but that's raising blood pressure. I remember, you know, stealing food, stealing snacks. I remember stealing snacks from the market, like, because we couldn't afford snacks. You know, like stealing Snickers. I remember stealing candy from the grocery store to sell the candy at school to buy more candy from the cheerleaders who was selling, like, you know how you get the Puff Pops at Starbucks?
Yeah.
But you know the light bulb type candies?
Yeah, I know exactly what
right.
you're talking about.
Cheerleaders were selling those.
Right.
And I remember hustling up money to get to that, to sell more of that. And then people who had less than me wanted to rob me for that. But, you know, obviously we're here and we've worked and established ourselves and grinded to get to this place. So when we talk about the thought process of people who sometimes have been, you know, thinking about what other people think, we just talked about that.
Yes.
Or obviously me for a while, I focused on a lot of motivational things, and at some point I ultimately forgot that the motivation is within.
Amen.
Like if it's not a part of you, it's just not you. So you can read all the quotes and stuff that you want, but I think sometimes you really have to isolate yourself and get get focused on what you need to get doing, right? Like sometimes just working, like sitting in front of the mic, sometimes I sit in front of the mic with the computer and research things that I want to talk about or things that I don't know about. Like we talk about the mental aspect of this as well. And it's all within your mind,
Mind is very powerful.
right? And somehow we've been taught that the mind is not as powerful, and we have trauma, we have anxiety, we have depression. And I believe that some people are born with some major problems, but also society's out here telling us that we're weak, and we need these quotes. We need these motivational people, and self-help is a real thing. So yes, you may not like the motivational quotes, but that's because you were motivated to do things yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like the way you got through college, I'm sure that nobody was beating down your door to get through college, was they?
What? No. My mother didn't even know I wanted to do it.
Right.
She was like, what? What?
And talk about that a little bit. I don't think people know that about you.
Yeah, man. I mean, I was an athlete, so I wanted to play college ball, right? So I remember that, man. So my senior year, one day my mother's like, so what you plan to do at this casual conversation, and I remember it was a fair at school, and I met the guy from the school I ended up going to. I don't really like to mention him, but anyway, and I'm like, and they told me about it, and I'm like, yeah, it sounds good. They had a great football team. The coach sounded cool, his background and everything. I said I want to go to school, and it was a shock to my mother. Like no one made me even go to college.
Right.
You feel me?
Right.
Nobody in my family ever went before.
Right.
So ended up I found out how to do the
Application.
open house
Okay.
application, all that. I didn't realize you had fees and all this.
Right.
I didn't know nothing about this. No one did. I didn't have help.
Right.
You feel me? So it's funny. This is great. It's a great point because everything was self-driven with this.
Exactly.
I wanted to go. I wanted to do this. So I found out how to do it. Did it even like
with lack of knowledge.
With lack of knowledge, nothing.
Yeah.
I had to figure everything out, and
you needed resources to actually add. Once you got the knowledge, you needed resources to fill out the applications to apply to the school.
Exactly.
Right.
And like even when I was about to, because I didn't do the greatest in high school. Like my mother didn't even think I could get in.
Yeah.
It was almost like a bet. Right? Because it was like 3-4 hours away. She like, okay, if you drive, I'm like, look, I can go to this open house and they accept you on the spot.
Right.
And she's like, all right. Well, guess what? I'll drive down and do it. If you get in, I'll pay for it.
Right. How many miles was that?
Who knows, man?
How many hours was it?
4.5 hours away.
Right. So imagine, I just want to, capture certain parts of this. Is not only did you not know that you wanted to go to college, but you figured it out. People didn't believe you. You're the first one in your family. Nobody knows the process.
Right.
And then you have to get someone to drive you 4 hours to an open house where you can potentially get into college? Or?
Yeah, so I had to give them all my stuff, and I had to write the thing and I had to go before a panel, right? And basically I wrote you write a introductory essay,
okay,
right? And I'm just a beast writer,
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I wrote because my GPA was terrible, my SAT score was not that great.
Odds stacked against you, huh?
But yeah, everything was stacked against me, bro. But I wrote this essay, and everybody on the panel was like, "Man, it was amazing."
Yeah.
She was like, the one thing that stood out to me is the lady was like, "Man, you took us through every single emotion that I have through this essay." And they asked me about the situation that I wrote about and everything, and I'm like, yeah, it was just because I wrote about something that happened to me in real life.
Right.
And you know what I mean, how I thought about it and everything that came about it. And they was like, yeah, we need people like you in our university. So I got that credit.
Right.
You feel me? So I got in and I almost failed at that because I got into trouble. You know, when I was in there.
Right.
You feel me? And the culture shock, all that.
Right.
Because a lot of people have money that go to these universities, and the one I went to, particularly when I went to, was a lot of wealthy people. Right. A lot of them. So, yeah, man, that's. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, everything about the college experience to me was self-driven. Because I got kicked out.
Exactly.
So I had to get motivated to get back in.
And finish.
And get a degree. Like, you feel me?
First in your family.
The first in my family to have a bachelor's degree, yeah. Most definitely.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't think it was no quotes, huh? None of that, right?
Nah. Nothing. It was just like I guess it was the proving people wrong or just earning something.
Right.
You know? And not even just earning something, but it's like winning a championship. Like, no one can take that away from you. I could have a bum on the street.
Right.
And guess what? I got a bachelor's degree, though.
Yeah.
You can't, like, cancel it. You know what I mean? Like, you can't cancel people that win a Super Bowl, bro.
Right.
That's something you can't take away.
Right.
So it's like having that type of accomplishment and I'm glad you brought this up, bro, because that kind of drives me throughout my entire life.
Right.
Is I could look back on that and, like, I got something that people...
Right. You had a little help along the way. Obviously, Mom Dukes.
Right. Of course I had help.
Right.
But I'm saying I got something that I got an accomplishment that people...
You earned that. And you were self-driven to not only go and get information, but then you had to do something with that information. Yeah. Then you had to coerce and convince people to do that. And then you had to get buy-in from your mom, like your family.
Yeah.
And then even when you were there, you ran into another hurdle.
Yeah.
Overcame that and still finished in the end. And that's what we talk about here, man. Like, if you put your head down and you focus, and no matter what people say, like you said, you were proving people wrong.
The whole way.
Because people are going to say things about you. People, like you said, you went to a very affluent school.
Right.
And you didn't come from the same type of family they came from. So that's even another hurdle that you had to overcome.
I had to learn that, bro. I didn't have a computer. I didn't have the proper utensils. Like, bro.
No, yeah, that's real, man. So when we talk about this, and I brought that story up because that should invoke some type of emotion in somebody to understand that this can be you. This is us. We didn't get here by accident. We worked for it. We earned it. So we're coming from a place of achievement when we talk about things and topics on this podcast, right? Life was going to go on.
Yeah, whether I liked it or not.
And you just kept going.
Yep.
Kept grinding. And kept it uplifting.
Most definitely. You something else, yo. You can pull that shit out like that. Make sure to like, comment, share, and most importantly, keep it uplifting.
Take it up, listen.